behind him looked at him with astonishment. Perseus also bowed and greeted Robert. "You're that Perseus?" Zog scrutinized Perseus from head to toe, his pale, expressionless face devoid of any emotion. "Yes." Perseus bowed again, smiling. Perseus' parent. Zog nodded and looked at Andre to the side. Andre's expression was complicated as he lowered his head. "Charles, come over here too." Zog glanced at Earl Murphy and waved casually. "The rest of you have gone through a lot of trouble. Go back now. I'll have someone call you again if I need anything." "Yes, sir." The nobles and officials, feeling as if they had been granted pardon, quickly left. "Lead the way," Zog said calmly. Robert quickly walked ahead and led the group into the office. As the most distinguished person, Andre rightfully took the position of city lord. Zog leaned against the desk, his profile facing Perseus and the others, his attention focused entirely on the sword in his hand, as if using the blade as a mirror. Of the three, Perseus stood in the center position. In truth, given his status, he was not qualified to stand in the middle. However, he had no choice but to separate the two to prevent Count Murphy from arguing with Robert in front of the crown prince and the prince. To show respect, Perseus lowered his head slightly and did not look directly at Andre, but he could feel that Andre was staring at him. When he looked up slightly, the guy looked away as if nothing had happened. He knew that Andre was obviously not interested in him. The guy wanted to find him and ask about Ivais's whereabouts. If Zog's identity hadn't been so significant that Andre dared not act recklessly, he would have been cornered in some unknown corner by now. Perseus knew about Prince Zog. It's no exaggeration to say that Zog is a brother-obsessed man who dotes on his emperor. Even now, he's willing to fight for his beloved emperor brother and suppress all disobedience. He went into battle in his teens, chasing and killing hundreds of people without blinking an eye. Zog is literally a ruthless killer, and his methods are so cruel that they are appalling. His strength should not be underestimated. He is currently ranked around 3rd in the empire. Compared to his father-in-law, Kutu, who ranked 2nd, Zog was even stronger in terms of attack power. Unfortunately, his physical abilities were no match for that monster, Kutu. If the two went all out, the outcome would be that Kutu was seriously injured and Zog died. This is already quite terrifying. With him in charge, no matter how crooked the adventurers try to be, they'll only face certain death. Perseus couldn't try anything funny in front of this man. Zog had a very bad temper. The Dog Emperor is undoubtedly a dangerous figure, but Zog is, in some ways, even more dangerous. If you accidentally offend the Emperor, it's okay. His Majesty doesn't show his emotions. Even if he's so angry that he wants to kill you immediately, he will rationally assess whether you still have any use to him, what side effects killing you would cause, and so on. So you probably won't die. At least they won't die immediately. But Zog is different. Just look at the unsheathed sword he carries. He's a man who likes to be straightforward. If he wanted to kill you, he would immediately swing his sword and chop off your head without thinking. Moreover, he's prone to murder. When he was young, Zog loved to travel around and challenge skilled opponents. Anyone who offends him, regardless of their identity, he will kill without hesitation. Many officials and nobles died at his hands. Unfortunately, the old emperor was an overprotective and lawless father, and his most beloved son was Zog. A large number of accusations were placed in front of him and were pushed into the furnace, almost causing a rebellion. However, the old emperor continued to do as he pleased. The old emperor has kicked the bucket, but Zog's good days are not over yet. The Dog Emperor trusts no one in this world, not even his own son, except for his good brother. Zog was indeed someone he could trust. So even now, if Zog were to kill a nobleman or an official, he would only be symbolically confined, and that would be the end of it. If it were someone like Perseus who was being cut down, they might not even need to be put in solitary confinement. He dared not even entertain the slightest thought of maneuvering against such a ruthless person. All he could do was remain obedient. "Thank you for your hard work, all three of you," Andre said. "It's all for His Majesty and the Empire," Robert said respectfully. "As Your Majesty wishes, now that we have arrived in Eagle Peak City, the message can be released to everyone in the name of the Empire. Please do this as soon as possible," Andre said. "Yes, Your Highness," Robert said. "In the coming period, a large number of outsiders will definitely flood into Eagle Peak City. We must pay attention to security issues and not allow anyone to cause trouble at this critical juncture. If anyone dares to commit crimes, they'll be dealt with more strictly than usual." "No need for too much trouble," Zog said calmly, still not looking in their direction. "Anyone who dares to cause trouble will be executed without trial once caught." "Uncle, this..." Andre was shocked. "Dois instructed." "Yes, sir." Zog pointed his sword downwards. "Everyone else, get out." Perseus, stay behind. Yes, sir. Perseus felt the pressure suddenly increase. Chapter 176 Zog's Admonition. Following Zog's orders, Andre and the others departed. Before leaving, Andre gave Perseus a pitying look, a look that Perseus readily caught. Perseus's face was ashen, his nerves were involuntarily on edge, and the sound of the door closing was like thunder. Just then, Zog looked over. Perseus stood tall and straight ahead, not making a point of meeting Zog's gaze. Actually, it's a blessing to avoid eye contact with this man. The feeling is awful. Looking into Zog's eyes is like having a razor pressed against your eyeballs. You have to focus on his gaze, but the more focused you are, the clearer and more unbearable the phantom pain of being cut by a knife becomes. But he couldn't avoid those gazes. Avoiding other people's gaze is generally considered a sign of guilt. He was honest and upright. He must at least convince others that he is like that. Zog walked over and stood directly in front of Perseus, looking him in the eye at close range. Perseus, Zog said. Yes, your highness. Perseus replied solemnly. I have been in seclusion and studying diligently, so I am not aware of what has happened in the capital recently. But before I set off this time, the emperor specifically mentioned you to me. The fact that you are receiving this treatment shows that you are no ordinary person, Zog said. Your highness is too kind, Perseus said. I am deeply honored to receive even a little attention from His Majesty. I heard you bought that girl from the Ephron family. Where's she now? Zog asked again. The mansion of Earl Murphy where we have been staying recently. Zog nodded. I'm curious. Why did you dare to have such courage? I know what happened at that auction. In the final stage, you were the only one who bid, but in my opinion, it would be normal for no one to dare to bid. Why did you become the exception? Perseus smiled silently. Many people have asked me similar questions, including Your Majesty, but my answer has always been the same. I love her so much so that I would do anything for her. That's why I stood up at that time, nothing more. Such an explanation is indeed impeccable. Love and affection can indeed make people lose their minds and forget their fears, even though there are some fears they shouldn't have forgotten, Zog said. I'll believe you for now. Don't betray this trust. If one day I discover that you have other plans, I will cut your head into 3 pieces. As Zog spoke, he stretched out his skeletal hand and tapped Zog's temple and cheekbone, as if marking the positions for the attack. 2 currents surged down Perseus's spine in an instant, leaving his hands and feet numb. Perseus smiled, despite the dangerous, sharp gaze. Zog also smiled. He was originally quite handsome, but due to his age and excessive thinness, his face, which had once captivated countless young girls, became sinister and terrifying. His smile was enough to frighten even ghosts. Very good, Zog said. After a while, Zog waved him out of the office and then called Robert and Earl Murphy in. Perseus was finally freed. Contact with Zog felt like contact with Cthulhu, both of whom were monsters capable of easily taking his life. Against such monsters, his intelligence and eloquence were utterly useless. The reason he was able to gain a slight advantage when dealing with Cthulhu was entirely thanks to Luna. If Luna hadn't liked him so much, and if Cthulhu hadn't been an incurable doting father, he wouldn't even have been qualified to meet Cthulhu, and even if he had, he wouldn't have been worthy of standing up straight and speaking. Unfortunately, Zog did not marry or have children, so he could not use the same method to control Zog. But given Zog's personality, even having a daughter wouldn't help. He'd still get killed if he was going to be killed. Therefore, when facing Zog, he could only keep a low profile to avoid losing his head for no reason. After Robert and Count Murphy entered the office, Perseus stood respectfully outside, lest Zog come looking for him again, sword in hand. Andre, like him, was as obedient as a little white rabbit. At first, neither of them spoke or looked at the other, but gradually, Andre became impatient and started glancing at him frequently, trying to get him to start a conversation. Perseus refused to cooperate. Where is she now? Andre couldn't help but ask. Your Highness, who are you referring to? Perseus asked politely. You're still as annoying as ever, Andre said, wanting to snap but not daring to, looking conflicted. I'm asking Ivia. Can you tell me? Oh, is that so? Perseus smiled. She has been with me all along, of course. We are currently staying at the Earl's mansion. She is doing very well, so your Highness need not worry. Andre's expression became even more conflicted, and he hesitated. Your Highness, can I see her? Andre asked. I'm afraid this is not a good idea, Perseus said. As far as I know, You have come with an important mission. Both His Majesty in the capital and His Highness the Prince have high expectations of you. At this critical juncture, you're going to see a woman who has nothing to do with you. This will put you and us in a rather passive situation. Andre felt bitter inside, unable to refute, knowing that what Perseus said was true. Even if Perseus didn't mind, he couldn't just meet with Ivaisa casually, as that would harm her. His father and his uncle, two people he could not go against under any circumstances, were of one mind regarding Ivaisa. In this situation, even just thinking about her in his heart is a potential danger for her. If further action is taken, this potential hazard will become a real danger. It doesn't matter, Andre said expressionlessly, suppressing the pain in his heart. I just need to know that she's doing well now. I hope you're not lying. Perseus simply smiled. You seem to have known about that all along, Andre said to himself. This time, many people will be entering that ruin. Even that guy Jerome might come. The situation is extremely complicated and dangerous, so I don't want you to go into the ruin. Your life is tied to hers. If something happens to you, she will too. Andre took a deep breath and fell silent. Perseus chuckled. Your Highness, you may be able to stop me, but what about her? Andre looked at him in surprise. She wants to get into that place, Perseus said seriously. Andre's gaze was blank. So I also have a reason to go into that place, which is to protect her. Perseus smiled. Your Highness, I know very well how you feel about her, but I have said before that my love for her is no less than anyone else's. So I'm very grateful for your concern for us, but we are afraid we will have to disappoint you with your precious kindness. Andre seemed to be thinking about something and didn't say anything more. Perseus remained silent. In fact, he was genuinely afraid to discuss Ivaisa's affairs with this guy. One reason was the fear that His Highness the Crown Prince might suddenly go mad. Secondly, they were afraid that Zog would go insane. Zog and the Dog Emperor, these two brothers, have been inseparable since childhood. They often share highly similar views on certain matters. Since the Dog Emperor is against Andre having any further involvement with Ivaisa, Zog is definitely even more against it. He didn't want Zog to mistake him for someone with ulterior motives and then have his head actually split into 3 pieces. He would surely die unjustly. As a prince, Zog was deeply trusted by the Emperor and was essentially the Emperor's incarnation when he was out in public. No one could or dared to interfere with what he did. He was a ruthless man that no one dared to offend. The only people in this world that His Highness the Prince would never kill are probably the Dog Emperor and Andre. Even the Emperor's wife, the Empress, and his other sons and daughters were not included. The conversation in the office was very long. After what seemed like an eternity, a voice finally came from inside. Both of you come in. Zog's voice was calm. He didn't shout, but his voice carried through the walls with remarkable clarity. The two entered the office one after the other. Zog's gaze swept over the two of them, finally settling on Perseus's face. These two say you've already brought together the more outstanding adventurers of Eagle Peak City? This was the City Lord's suggestion, which was approved by Earl Mofiat. I was merely the executor, Perseus said with a smile. Quite skillful, Zog said meaningfully. Perseus thought that Robert must have told Zog about him borrowing Dylan's head. Your Highness is too kind, Perseus said calmly. Those adventurers, though they're all second-rate, could be a formidable force if they joined together, Zog said. This is all for loyalty to His Majesty and the Empire, Perseus said. I have emphasized this to them more than once, and they all agree. That will be perfect. If your Highness requires it, I may hand over command of these men. No, since you assembled the team, you will still be in charge. However, let me make this clear beforehand, Zog said. I don't expect you to achieve anything. I just hope you won't cause any trouble. If you or your men do something wrong, you should know the consequences. With a slight movement of his great sword, the floor around Perseus was instantly etched with countless tiny marks, each one of equal depth. Robert and Earl Murphy both looked over, their expressions grave. Understood, Perseus said. You can leave now and go back to your place. I'll send someone to let you know if anything happens. Zog looked to the side. I shall take my leave. Perseus bowed and left the office. Chapter 177 The Truth.